How are you guys doing? I want to introduce you guys to our speaker for this lab. This is Dr. Mphago, who is a faculty member. He's a lecturer at the Botswana International University of Science and Technology. And his dissertation research was honeypots, particularly looking at honeypots here in Botswana. And so I would like to turn over to him, who is going to present his research and talk briefly, well, maybe perhaps not briefly, it's not an inappropriate word, but he's going to talk quite a bit, a good discussion on honeypots. And so, Dr. Mphago, would you take it over?
Yeah, thank you, Mo. Thank you, everyone, for listening to me. I'm going to share you a little bit of information about honeypots. Like Mo was saying, I did some research on honeypots. My dissertation actually was on honeypots. So I did some research on honeypots, and actually Mo was also my examiner on my research. So you already know about my research about honeypots. And my name is Mphago, and that's my email. If you want to get in touch with me, you can email me on that email that you see on the screen. And we'll talk about a brief discussion on honeypots. What is a honeypot? What are the purposes of honeypots, and how do we classify honeypots? So a honeypot is just a security resource that whose value lies in being probed and attacked. If a honeypot is not attacked, then it's not serving its purpose. Just like from the prefix honey, it is supposed to be sweet. In other words, it's supposed to attract attackers to attack it. If it's not attracting attackers, then it's not serving its purpose. So I want to believe that at some point you have set a honeypot yourself to somebody else, or maybe your parent have set a honeypot for you. There are different types of honeypots. Like, for example, if your parent puts something there and then they want to see if you are going to take that, maybe a coin or sugar. They want to see if I leave my coin here, can my kid steal these coins? They're actually setting up a honeypot for you by doing that. So if you steal that coins, the honeypot is serving its purpose. Your mother or your father wanted to see if you can actually steal the coins when you see them. So that coin becomes a honeypot. So it's serving its purpose. So that if you look at the picture here that you see on the screen, there's different types of deployments of honeypots. The picture on the top is a honeypot that is set within the DMZ along other web server, along other servers. So when attackers attack the network, when they attack the servers, they will actually attack a honeypot also, not knowing that this is a honeypot.
Hi, Mphago. Sorry to interrupt. I can't see your picture.
Can you see the screen there?
I just see the title page. Only the first page of your presentation.
Is my screen moving?
No, it's not. So, Mphago, click on 2 and click on 3. So click on these specifically.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. We can see classic. Yep, we can see it.
You can see them now.
Yes.
Yes. If you look at those two pictures there, at the top one, the honeypot is set within the servers. When you try to attack the network, if you try to attack the servers, in one of the computers that you will attack will be a honeypot, and you will think that you are attacking a server, while in actual fact you are attacking a honeypot. So this is an example of a deployment of a honeypot within the DMZ or within the servers of the organization. You can also still deploy a honeypot in the internal network, and it will behave like a normal computer. When you try to attack the network, you will see responses coming to you just as if they are coming from a network computer, but in actual fact, it will be a honeypot. So they will be serving their purpose there. whereby the purpose can be either to deflect you away from the important network resources, or they just want to learn how you attack the systems. So there are different types of honeypots. They can be classified according to the purpose or the level of interaction. If you classify honeypots according to the purpose, it can either be a research honeypot or a production honeypot. So when you talk of a production honeypot, is this kind of honeypots that are only designed to divert attention away from the organization's important resources. If you put a web server next to the actual web server of the system, and if you put a honeypot next to the web server, and that honeypot is emulating the web server, you are actually diverting the attention away from the organization web server into the honeypot. And if it's like that, it means the honeypot is a production honeypot. They also serve as alert systems to administrators for any potential attacks in real time. If you try to attack the organization systems, the honeypots can actually alert the administrators that there is something going on. But when you talk of the research honeypots, these ones, they don't add direct value to the organization, but they're only designed to gain knowledge about the attackers' attacking methods. They are specifically for intelligence gathering on the threat that the organization may be facing. So those are the two different types of honeypots classified according to purpose. They can also be classified according to the level of interaction, like low interaction honeypot, medium interaction honeypot, and high interaction honeypot. Low interaction honeypots are those that only mimics or they emulate specific services that can be exploited, and they cannot lead to the total control of the honeypot because they have no actual operating system to interact with. Like, for example, they can mimic Microsoft Word, as an example. They can mimic a web browser. So if they mimic just one specific application, that they become low interaction honeypot. And then they can also be medium interaction honeypot. These ones, they are more advanced as compared to low interaction honeypot. They mimic a lot of applications at the same time, and they are closer to the actual operating system of a system, operating system of a computer. So in other ways, they don't just mimic just one application, but several applications at the same time. They, if you go to high interaction honeypots, these ones, they are not just emulating, but they provide the real operating system for the attacker to interact with. So in other ways, the difference between high interaction honeypot and medium interaction honeypot is high interaction honeypots, they give you the actual operating system to attack, while medium and low interaction honeypot, they don't give you the operating system, but they just make the services of that operating system. So that's how they are classified according to level of interaction. So about the history of honeypots, the honeypots have been there for some time, since 1960s, when the first viruses and worms were discovered. Can you see my slide on history?
Yes, I can see your slide.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So they've been there since 1960s, when the first viruses and worms were discovered. But the wide discussion of honeypots only came into being when Clifford Stoll successfully captured a German hacker using a physical honeypot, and that was in 1986. Stoll wrote a book about that interaction with the German hacker, and the book was called The Cuckoo's Egg. The book is there online, you can Google it and find it. And only after this book, a lot of discussion came into being within the security community, and that was around 90s. So commercial honeypots only came into picture after 1991, when a lot of security communities discovered this book of Cuckoo's Egg. That's when they started to develop commercial honeypots. But a lot of honeypots that we see today started in 1999 after the formation of the HoneyNet project led by Lance Wisner. And in this group, it was a group called the HoneyNet project. Lance Wisner formed this group after 1999, and they wrote a lot of a series of papers. They named them Know Your Enemy. I think they also have a website where they publish everything that they do. So most of the honeypots that we see today, they came out of this group. There are different types of honeypots that you can see today: web application honeypots, network honeypots, operating system honeypots. If you talk of web application honeypots, we are talking of examples are D-Shield, high interaction honeypots. Most of those honeypots, some of them were developed, and then the developers left them along the way because they were too difficult to maintain, or sometimes the developers got stuck and then left them along the way. In terms of network honeypots, there is one popular honeypot called, some say Honey, some say Honeybee. It was also developed by this group. It mimics the entire network. If you want to design a honeypot that mimics the entire network, Honeybee is one of those examples. It was designed also by this group. If you interact with that network, you will think that you are actually interacting with someone's network while you are just on a virtual machine, which is a honeypot. So in web applications, there is another, one of the most popular honeypots in web applications is Glasstop, which I did my PhD on. Glasstop is a very advanced web application honeypot. It's a low interaction web application honeypot. So I did my research on it because when I was interacting with the honeypot, I realized that there's a honeypot is supposed to be a deception system by default. But when I was interacting with the system, I realized that the deception of the honeypot was not that good. And then I did my research on it to try to improve its deception tactics or deception skills. So there are several honeypots that you can talk about, but low interaction honeypots, they're easy to make because they just emulate only a specific application. If you design, for example, something that emulates how PowerPoint works, and then you give it to people, as long as that application has recording abilities to record what people are doing to it, then it becomes a honeypot. High interaction honeypot, we say, is an actual operating system, but if you give a web server, an actual web server to somebody, and then that web server you configure to capture everything that somebody does to it, it becomes a high interaction honeypot. So I can talk about honeypots in more detail, but for this presentation, I only did this 6 slides only, unless if Mo wants more. Hello, Mo.
Yes, Mphago, if you need to expand, take all the time you need. So if you need to expand upon honeypots and whatnot, please do take your time.
Yes. So just a moment. Yes. For example, let's talk about the web application honeypots. There are different types of web application honeypots that existed. Some of them that are no longer existing now because the developers got stuck along the way and then left them. Like, for example, the high interaction analysis toolkit is one of those web applications that has been developed by the HoneyNet project. There is another web application honeypot called DShield that was developed and is no longer maintained at the moment because the developers also got stuck along the way. DShield was written using PHP. There was another honeypot called Google Hack Honeypot. If you like attacking system using the Google attack mechanisms, this honeypot was designed for that. There is another honeypot called PHP honeypot. This one is a PHP low interaction honeypot that emulates flows in various PHP applications. And the project has since stopped because it was difficult to maintain by developers, and now it's only used for historical interests. There was another honeypot called what was the name? Heat-seeking honeypots. Heat-seeking honeypots are those honeypots that actually can be deployed on the web, and they are waiting for those attackers who are actively looking for vulnerable applications on the web. It's like the reason why they are called heat-seeking is because when attackers attack systems, they just look for vulnerable applications on the web. Heat-seeking honeypots, they present themselves as those applications that are vulnerable on the web, and when the attacker attacks it, they named it as heat-seeking because it's like when the attacker is looking for those, actively looking for those applications on the web, the honeypot will present itself like as if it's a vulnerable application on the web, and when you attack it, it learns your attack methods. Like I was saying, the most advanced web application honeypot that was developed by the HoneyNet project was Glasssoft. This one is also a low interaction web application honeypot, but it was able to respond according to what you expect it to respond by itself. So it was a more advanced web application honeypot. It was designed during the Cyber Fast Track project. It was just a competition, and the group designed the project within that competition, and then it grew from there. So there are also network application honeypots, like I was saying. Honey is the most advanced, and it's a commercial honeypot. You can actually buy it and then use it to learn what attackers are looking for when they attack networks. So honeypot by default, they're supposed to be deception systems. If a honeypot is not deceptive, that it means it's not a good honeypot, because it's not supposed to show the attacker that I'm a honeypot, I'm sitting here as a honeypot. Some of the honeypots, they are not so good in their deception tactics. And it's one of the active research that we are doing in our departments. Which honeypots are not so deceptive? How can we make them that deceptive so that they can actually serve their purpose? And it's one of the research that we've been planning to collaborate with more on the deception of honeypot. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Well, we're learning, but you're making sense.
It's good to learn. So on the history of honeypot, of course, I skipped some of the activities that happened before we reach today's stage of honeypots. If you go to Google Trends and just and then just Google honeypots trends, you will find that honeypots they became more popular starting from 2008 because the influx of worms and viruses on the computers, they were more at the highest level around that period, and then honeypots were designed mostly around that period, 2008, but they didn't start there. They started as early as 1960s. But because by then people didn't, well, they were not even called honeypots by then. The word honeypot came into being around 1994 by Lance Pisner when he formed this group, the HoneyNet Project. By then, I think they were just being called systems that can actually be used to track attackers. They were not given the name honeypot. Yeah, I think I've talked enough. Hello, Mo?
Yes. All right. So why do you think honeypots is an important topic for students, and what are ways that they could develop their own honeypot at a low cost?
Honeypot is a very important topic because security at the moment, we rely on security technology like firewalls, what do you call it? Intrusion detection systems and stuff. But now you can never be able to defend when you don't know how the attackers are taking the systems. So for you to be able to know how exactly are they taking the systems, you need to something that can actually help you to learn how attackers are taking my system. Then that's when you can actually say, I want to defend my systems in this manner. But how do you learn how attackers are taking your systems? Honeypot is one of those important tools that you can use to learn how attackers are attacking you. So if you know exactly how they're going to attack you, you will actually know how you will defend your system. So low interaction honeypots, they're easy to make because you only emulate just the services that are going to be attacked. They're easy to deploy, unlike when you need to do the entire system, like the entire operating system. Like for example, you can actually emulate only services that are attacked on the web server, like the database of that web server, the requests, what requests are being sent to the web server, and what responses the web server is supposed to make. If you are able to do that, then you can design a low interaction web application honeypot, for example. So if you are able to design a honeypot that is deceptive enough, it means you are able to learn whatever the attackers are doing without them knowing that you are learning from what they are doing. Because any attacker, if they know that they are being tracked, somebody's looking at what they are doing, they will stop. They won't attack anything because they don't want to expose their attack methods. But if a honeypot can actually present itself to the attackers that I'm here, I'm vulnerable, attack me, then you are able to learn how they attack your systems. And if you are able to learn how they attack your systems, you will be able to know how to defend your system. I think there's a way, there's a phrase that says, you can never know how to defend how to defend somebody you don't know, something like that. So if you know who is attacking you, you'll know how to defend. Even in football, for example, if you know your opponent, you can actually defend better than when you don't know anything about your opponent. So that's where the honeypots come into be. You have to learn the attackers first.
And quick note, so everyone, Mphago is here in Botswana, so football is soccer for anyone that's in the States.
Oh yeah, I forgot that in the States we call it different.
So Mphago, so
Yes.
if I want to set up a honeypot, what type of skills do I need to set up a honeypot?
First of all, you need, if you want to set the honeypot, if you design the honeypot by yourself, you need the programming skills. And what is more important is whatever honeypot you are going to mimic. Like for example, if you want to design a network honeypot, it means you need to understand how networks work. What are the responses when the attacker attacks a honeypot? What exactly are they looking for, and how is the network supposed to respond? Right? If you take a web server, for example, when you query the web server, what exactly are the responses from the web server, and what exactly are the attacker is supposed to see when querying the web server? That's what is important. So to design a web server honeypot, you need to know the programming skills of web design or web development. And then the important part is going to be what exactly is the attacker going to see when attacking the web server? And what are the responses the web server is supposed to give? Because you don't want to design a honeypot that when queried, it gives something different from what is supposed to be what is supposed to be sending, for example. When a honeypot is giving false responses, the attackers will simply say, no, this is not supposed to be like this. Then it means there's something wrong on the other side. It might be a honeypot, because a web server will never give me a response from a network server, for example. When you query a web server, you're not expecting to see the responses that from a network server, for example. Therefore, it means when you design the honeypot, you need to know exactly the responses that the web server is supposed to be giving.
Okay, awesome. And so when you got involved in this research, what was like your motivation? Like, what was the item that said, all right, I want to do my doctoral research on honeypots, in particular for this country?
Okay, when I started this research, I was more fascinated with this how to attack systems, and then how to defend against certain attacks. So I wanted to design. I wanted to engage in a research whereby I can actually interact with the attackers and see what exactly do they want. Because when you talk of security, you can take it into from two perspectives: defensive security and offensive security. I was more fascinated by offensive security. How do attackers attack systems? What exactly are they looking for? So if they attack systems in this manner, how can I defend my systems? You see, there's this common expression in security community that says there is nothing like absolute security. So it came a fascination to me. If there's nothing like absolute security, can I come with a research that can actually say, well, this is the absolute security? And then it came to me that then if there's no absolute security, one way of making security better is knowing what exactly is these people doing when they attack your systems. That's when it came to honeypots. There's only one way you can learn about attackers. It's only through the use of honeypots. So if you know how the attackers are attacking you, you can actually provide a better security than when you don't know anything about them.
Okay, that's really interesting. So So once you understand how an attacker would attack you, what are the next steps? So now you have your honeypot, you understand how individuals would attack you. What are the next things that you would have to do since you understand how the attacker would attack you? What would be my next steps of action? Like if I'm a company and I say, all right, I see how these individuals are trying to attack the organization network. I've learned their methods of attack, what they're trying to exploit. What should I do after that?
Well, once you know how the attackers attack you, you will actually know how to configure your security technologies to defend against those attacks. Like, for example, if you have a firewall in your organization as part of your security line, and you know that when attackers attack you, the requests are crafted in this manner. You can actually configure a firewall to actually block those kind of requests. If you know, but if you don't know, you will never know how to configure the firewall to block those requests. If you design your defense in depth, for example, you will actually know how to configure all those security technologies to defend against certain attack methods. But if you don't know, you will always be attacked because you always configure your systems wrongly. And you can also know which security technologies I need to defend myself better. Like most of the time, you'll find that some people will just deploy a firewall within their network and say it's enough for my security. But if you know exactly how they attack you, you will find that a firewall alone is not enough. You need other security technologies to defend all other attack vectors that they bring to you.
Okay, yeah, because I'm thinking like, so you have your honeypot and you have individuals that attack the organization, and from there, perhaps you create a plan to guard against that attack. But once you create that plan to mitigate those attacks, should you continue to have honeypots out, and should you have multiple honeypots out?
Can you say that again?
Okay, so you have your honeypot, right?
Yes.
You had individuals attack the honeypot. So individuals attack the honeypot. And now you know how the attacker would actually try to compromise your system. Once you do that, do you create new honeypots to see what other new ways they would do or other new people? Do you have more than one honeypot is what I'm asking.
Okay, that's where this way, this phrase, there's nothing like absolute honeypot comes into be, because once you learn the attack methods now, tomorrow they might become differently because attackers are actively enhancing their skills. So once you know the attack methods today, it doesn't mean those attack methods will be the same as tomorrow. So there's different types of honeypots. There's production honeypots and research honeypots. Research honeypots are only specifically to learn the attack methods. They don't add any direct value. But if you design a production honeypot, for example, that production honeypot, it is only there to deflect attack methods away from the important resources in the organization. So if you put a production honeypot on the organization, it means the attackers will not, there will be, if the honeypot is doing its purpose, or if it's serving its purpose, the attackers will divert away from the important resources to the honeypot. So that by there, it's serving its purpose. So they are not attacking your systems that are being protected. But research honeypots on the other side, they're only meant for you who you'll be setting up the security of the posture of the organization, to know how exactly can I set the security posture of this organization. But if you learn today, this honeypot is telling you that, okay, this is how attackers are taking this system. It doesn't mean tomorrow they will be doing the same. They will be, that's why the honeypot research is an ongoing thing. It doesn't stand in just one place and say, we have learned how attackers are taking the system, so now we need to get away from the honeypots and then design our systems they're actively changing the attack method. So the honeypots will always be there to know how they attack the systems. Only what is need to be done is how do we enhance the honeypot so that they don't see that this is the honeypot. I don't know if I answered the question.
You are. And so the other question I have is with honeypots, like, have you noticed a big difference between honeypots that are Windows-based versus Linux-based or Mac-based? Like, what are those differences between those types of systems in terms of getting attacked and stuff? Have you seen?
The difference will be a Windows server, for example, IIS. When you query it, what are the responses that you need? What you see when you query ISL? It will obviously behave differently from a Linux server in terms of the responses. Well, what are the responses that it gives? How does it behaves? So a honeypot that emulates Windows will be different from a honeypot that emulates a Linux system, because those systems are different systems and they respond differently. But in terms of network system, what exactly are the responses when you query a network? How does a network look like? You will find that in a network, there are switches, routers, client computers, servers of different operating systems. So now a network of a honeypot will try to emulate different operating systems at the same time. But if you take a low interaction honeypot that is supposed to emulate a web server, it will emulate only the responses that you expect to see from that web server. IIS, for example, will respond differently from Apache, but not in everything, but some of the responses. You will find that they are different from Apache server, for example. Therefore, when you design a Windows honeypot, you should know exactly how Windows honeypot, how Windows systems behave. What are the responses they will give when you query them?
Just one more question here. So what do you think is the role of social engineering in setting up honeypots?
The role of social engineering.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand is like we need to lure people to first get trapped into honeypots. So how does like social engineering like into luring the people or deceiving the people to come to the honeypot plays a role? Like what techniques can we use? Yeah.
Okay. A honeypot by itself is supposed to market itself. So in other words, when you design a honeypot, you don't expect to trick people into attacking that system using the social engineering. Why? Because a honeypot that is deceptive enough is supposed to deceive the attacker into believing that this is an actual system. If you trick people into going into the system yourself, maybe the social engineering might not be that perfect there, and then they will see that, okay, somebody's trying. I've tried this before, whereby I designed a honeypot and then I send it to somebody through email, and then I try to trick that somebody into opening that system and then play around with it. But because my social engineering was not that good, he managed to see that there's something wrong with this system. Why am I being asked to do this in the system? Only to find that no, this actually is not a real system. It's a honeypot. But a honeypot by itself is supposed to market itself. There's what we call the attack surface of a honeypot. Attack surface is what attracts the attackers to attack the system. So you don't have to involve, a perfect honeypot doesn't have to involve a social engineer to direct it to the honeypot. It has to market itself. The attack surface, if it's big enough, it can attack, because when people attack the system, when people attack the attackers, when they want to attack systems, they will just search for vulnerable systems on the web, for example. So when they search vulnerable systems on the web, if the attack surface of the system is big enough and is attractive enough, they will be able to see it. You don't have to direct them to that honeypot. Did I answer the question?
Yes.
All right, so Mphago, I would like to thank you on behalf of Illinois Institute of Technology for sharing your research and your knowledge on honeypots. Definitely would like to welcome you back in the future. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.
All right.